Hello, I'm Chris, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL. Thanks for joining me. I'm sure you see loads of videos made by people like me about fragrances that we can't stop recommending, but you probably see the same fragrances mentioned time and time again. In this video, I'm talking about 10 under the radar fragrances I will never stop recommending. Stay tuned. So you're sick of hearing about the same old fragrances over and over again. This video's for you. I've scoured my entire collection to find 10 stunning fragrances that you might not have heard about before. Okay, I'm sure some of you will have heard of the fragrances in this video, but generally, these are fragrances that you don't hear people talking about very much. Thus, I don't think you would smell people wearing these fragrances very much. So if you want to fly under the radar with a stunning scent, let's go. Kicking things off with a great affordable scent from Banana Republic, it's Grassland. This is an extremely likeable, mass appealing fragrance that has similarities to a well-known Creed scent, but at a much lower price point. When I first smelled this fragrance, it immediately reminded me of Creed's Green Irish Tweed. Now I say reminded because it's definitely not exactly the same fragrance, and it's definitely not exactly the same price point, because you can pick this fragrance up for around £25. You still get that very classy, freshly cut grass smell, but unlike Green Irish Tweed, this one has a refreshing, freshly crushed mint kind of smell. In addition to that, there's also a green apple accord, which adds a little bit of extra fruitiness and a little bit of extra sweetness compared to the Creed. Freshly crushed mint, freshly sliced crisp green apple, freshly cut grass. This fragrance is for anyone who wants to smell fresh and sophisticated, but maybe a little more youthful than Creed's Green Irish Tweed. Next is the standout from a brand I never hear anyone talking about. Don't really know why, because they create some great fragrances. This one is probably the hardest to pronounce in this whole video, but I'm gonna have a little go. From Wuda Sue, it's Anistium Shikra. I think I did all right. This is a powdery, creamy fragrance with notes of cherry and pecan nuts. Very natural smelling fragrance, very addictive as well. When you smell this, there's something that really draws you in. It's maybe not addictive in the sense that it's a really sweet, gourmand type of fragrance, although there is a sweetness to it, but addictive in the sense that it's so different and a little bit mysterious. The creamy cherry nuttiness I get from this is really unique. And then there's also a note of bran. I know bran is used in other fragrances, but you don't come across it very often. So this creamy cherry nuttiness plus this branny type note creates this really interesting, unique smell. As well as interesting and unique, I'd also describe this fragrance as sexy and alluring. Maybe because I've never smelled anything like this before, it just draws you in. I think it will draw in people around you. I just want to get a little bit closer and try and find out what it is that you're wearing, because they won't have smelled it before. So if you want to smell amazing and sexy and alluring, and you want an under the radar fragrance that people will not be used to smelling, but they'll want to smell it more once they smell it on you, Wuda Sue Anistium Shikra. Bathhouse are a brand that originates in the English Lake District. They produce a range of different fragrance products, home fragrance, baths, body wash, that type of thing, but their range of EDPs is also excellent, and my favourite from the line is Slate. Oud, cardamom, sandalwood and leather are just some of the main notes in Slate. This one smells along similar lines to Tom Ford's Oud Wood. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a direct copy, because it doesn't smell like it's a direct copy, but you get that same sexy spiciness combined with a really clean oud. It's also a very natural smelling fragrance, which I also think Oud Wood is. Oud Wood is one of my favourite all-time fragrances, which also means I really love Slate too. If you're interested, you can pick a 60ml like this one up for £68 or 100ml for £100, so pretty reasonably priced, bearing in mind that you are getting a very premium, luxurious type of scent. Bathhouse have several physical stores around the country as well as a website, so look up where the stores are. If there's any near you or anywhere you're visiting, do pop in and see what they have to offer, because I think there's some good stuff. Pocket Scents are a Scottish brand that creates original and inspired fragrances. This fantastic scent that I'm recommending to you is Bondi Man. This is inspired by Amouage's Beach Hut Man. Mint, vetiver, moss, myrrh and patchouli. This is a great, fresh, fizzy citrus bomb with some dry, woody vetiver and green moss. Really nicely blended and unusually complex for a fresher green type of fragrance. Reminds me of a very high-end luxury soap type of smell, so it has a really nice clean aspect to it. Performance is excellent. This is an attention-grabbing, sophisticated, masculine type of smell. I'm not quite sure how close it is to Amouage's Beach Hut Man because I've not done a side-by-side comparison. So for me, I just take that out of the equation and judge this fragrance on its own merits. And whenever I wear this, I absolutely love it. One of the reasons I love it so much is because of the type of smell and because of the complexity and the strength. Works great as a fresher scent to wear in warmer weather, but works equally as well in cooler weather. So excellent versatility and a good price of around £35 for Bondi Man. We all know that Armaf can throw a pretty good cologne together. I'm not sure if this one is a cologne, but I don't care because it smells damn good. This is Radical Brown. Cinnamon, tobacco, incense, amber, vetiver, and an absolutely gorgeous bottle. I've realized that I'm talking about a few clones or inspired fragrances in this video. Honestly, that was not intentional. This is not a video about cologne fragrances. It just so happens that some of them may or may not be inspired by other fragrances. I just pick scents that don't get talked about very much, that I love turning to and I think smell great. This one smells similar to Parfum de Marly's Herod. I don't think it smells close enough for it to be an exact cologne, but it does smell along the same lines. It's got a little bit of fruitiness, it's got tobacco. I think it's a little bit sweeter than Herod. I don't think it's quite got the same depth or complexity. It's a bit more of a flatter fragrance, but I think that means it's actually an easier fragrance to wear. It's a little more, shall we say, dumbed down than Herod, but for some people that actually might make it an easier to wear fragrance. Regardless of that though, you still get that beautiful incensey cherry tobacco smell that really hits the spot. It hits the spot because it is so seductively smooth and addictive, and for a price tag of around £30, it's good value fragrance, particularly when you consider this stunning presentation. If you like easygoing sweet tobacco fragrances, then I would say Radical Brown is definitely worth a try. It's not the type of fragrance you'll really find in store, so I don't think you'll be able to go out and sample it, which means you've got to blind buy it if you want to try this. At £30, I would say this is a relatively low risk blind buy fragrance, particularly if you like sweet tobacco scents like me. Here is a fragrance that smells super versatile, boosts confidence, and makes you smell like a very successful business person who's filthy rich. You might even be called a tycoon. This is the Tycoon from St. Giles Fine Fragrance. There is an arresting sharpness provided by galbanum, pomelo, and ginger. This leads into a warm spiciness, and oak moss give it a little bit of a classic edge. The best word to describe this fragrance is assertive. That's how it smells, that's how it makes you feel when you wear the fragrance. It makes me think of a person who is confident, they know what they want in life, they've got their stuff together, they're not going to take any crap from anyone. They are the boss, they are the tycoon. This is not a fragrance that smells like any other fragrance, but I am going to compare it to AVENTUS in terms of the occasions and the situations you might wear it for and how it makes you feel when you wear AVENTUS. You wear AVENTUS, it makes you feel and smell like a boss. You're going to get the exact same effect from the Tycoon. If you want to smell like a boss, I will always recommend the Tycoon from St. Giles. A brand that likes to bring niche fragrances to all is Niche for All. Patchouli TB is a fragrance that all people should be wearing. Green apple, patchouli, tonka bean, vanilla, and a stunning, unlisted but unmistakable cherry tobacco accord. Don't worry, the TB does not stand for tuberculosis. It stands for tonka bean. I'm not quite sure why it's not called patchouli tonka bean, but let's forget about that. This is a beauty. The brand do say that patchouli and tonka bean are at the center of this fragrance, which I guess is why they've decided to call it Patchouli TB, but I'm going to go out there and say I've definitely smelt more patchouli-centric fragrances than this one. It doesn't seem to bring the patchouli front and center like you might think from a fragrance that has patchouli in the name, but that's okay because what I get from this fragrance is a smooth, rich, deep, sweet smelling, addictive type of smell. It's not listed, but I definitely get cherry tobacco vibes from this fragrance. If you like fragrances like Mancera's Red Tobacco and Parfum de Marly's Carlisle, so rich, deep, heavy, attention-grabbing scents, but smooth and sexy and alluring at the same time, then you're probably going to enjoy this because it is a very similar type of DNA. I don't know if it's meant to be a copy or a clone or an inspired version of either of those two fragrances. I feel like Carlisle has a little more sort of woody intensity than this one, but this is a very beautiful wear. Great pricing. You can pick up 100ml like this one for £56, or you can get the 30ml version of this for £36. So for that type of DNA, I think that is pretty decent value. You can purchase these from an affiliate link down in my video description. I do get a little bit of a kickback from that, as we all do from affiliate links, but I will only ever support brands that I would recommend to you, and this fragrance I will never stop recommending. This next one is the last inspired by fragrance, I promise you. But the difference with this one is that this is potentially even better than the fragrance it's inspired by. From Alexandria Fragrances, we have Royal Equestrian. Fruity, vanilla-y, and spicy. This is an absolute compliment magnet. I'm not just saying that, I have actually genuinely had quite a few compliments on this fragrance. It's inspired by Parfum de Marly's Leighton. Although it is a little bit different, I think it's smoother than Leighton, and I feel like the performance is slightly better. I don't know if the oil concentration is higher. You often find that with these types of inspired by fragrances, they can use a higher oil concentration than the originals that they're inspired by. And in this case, I think that means better performance. Leighton, though, is an incredible fragrance. I'm so glad I own it. I do wear it quite often, but I do find myself reaching for this one just as often, actually. I have heard quite a few people say that out of the two fragrances, they actually prefer the smell and the performance of Royal Equestrian. I know not everyone out there will agree with clones or what they're doing, and I completely get that and respect it. But I know there's plenty of people who don't care about all that. They just want to buy a relatively affordable fragrance that they really enjoy. If you're one of those people, if you enjoy mass appealing, sexy, spicy fragrances at a reasonable price, then I will always recommend to you Royal Equestrian from Alexandria Fragrances. Soma Parfums keep coming out with some great stuff, but still my favourite from the brand is Halcyon. Toffee, cinnamon, rum, honey, tobacco, vanilla, and lots of compliments. This is such an alluring, seductive, decadent fragrance. I was wearing this once and I walked into a pub. I literally just stepped through the door and the girl working behind the bar said, "Wow, that is a great smell, whatever you're wearing." I absolutely love it. One of the biggest, most unexpected, unsolicited compliments I've ever received, which suddenly plants an association in my mind. I think of this fragrance as a fragrance that is gonna get loads of unsolicited, unexpected compliments. Not that it does, because unsolicited compliments don't happen very often. Sometimes you might get lucky. Halcyon definitely did it for me. Stellar performance is probably one of the reasons why I got a compliment off this, because it is so diffusive. I think your projection field, or whatever you want to call it, is pretty wide on this one, especially within the first sort of 20-30 minutes after you've sprayed it. If you like sweet, gourmand-like tobacco fragrances, I would highly recommend getting your nose on Halcyon. And also if you're the type of person who wants to get compliments from barmaids across the country, maybe. I visited New York City in 2019 and I picked this fragrance up from this New York-based brand, and now the smell for me has become synonymous with the Big Apple. This is the absolutely delightful Golden Oud from Amarud. Another sweet tobacco scent. There's also caramel, myrrh, vanilla, obviously oud, and a little bit of a champagne fizz in the top. As rich and as sweet as this fragrance is, it never sits too heavy. It's also got a bright, diffusive quality that just sends it off into the air beautifully. I don't know if it's the champagne note. I'm not quite sure how a champagne note is created and put into a fragrance. Maybe it's just a collection of different notes that create like a champagne feel or a champagne effect. I think it might be this that is creating this sort of airy fizziness that's underpinned by the sweeter, heavier notes. But this is one sexy, seductive fragrance. The sweet tobacco, the caramel. It's also got a good bit of punchy attitude, which is a really nice contrast. It's maybe the oud providing this depth, this punchy little bit of attitude, but it never ever crosses over into funky animalic territory. Nor does it ever get too sweet. It's just right. In fact, this could just as easily have been called Goldilocks oud rather than Golden oud. I'm not sure that name is quite as catchy, but you know what I mean. Considering this fragrance smells so good, you hear relatively few people talking about it, so I think it classifies as an under-the-radar scent that smells fantastic. Remarkably well-made scent from Amarud, and one that I will never stop recommending. All right, enough of my recommendations. What under-the-radar fragrance would you recommend? Which fragrances do you absolutely love that you feel don't get talked about quite enough? Or maybe you don't want to mention them because you want them to remain under the radar, and quite frankly, I probably shouldn't have mentioned any of these fragrances because it's kind of nice to wear scents that not many other people are wearing. But if you've got any recommendations, drop them down in the comments, let me know. I'm also thinking about doing another video similar to this, fragrances that I will never stop recommending, but maybe a starter set, maybe designer fragrances, maybe niche fragrances. Let me know if you want to see any more in this I will always recommend these fragrances series. All right, if you like this video, if you found it useful, you know what to do. Give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do all that, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.